7. My name is Jordan, and I, as the speaker of the opposition leader, the first speaker, would like to define contra, would like to vehemently go against the motion, which is that this House would abolish fossil fuel subsidies and redirect the entire budget to subsidize environmentally friendly alternative technologies. First of all, they didn't even give a definition as to what they mean by fossil fuel subsidies. Do they mean petrol? Do they mean coal? Do they mean every single thing under the sun that requires fossil fuel? If they mean every single thing under the sun that requires that is basically fossil fuel subsidy related, then this is an absolutely bad idea. Like abolish, what do they mean? Abolish the entire thing and redirect it to subsidize environmentally friendly alternative technologies. What environmentally friendly alternative technologies do they mean? Do they mean like eco-friendly cars? Do they mean like eco-friendly systems? Because there is no such fully eco-friendly systems. First of all, I'm going to lay one by one the disadvantages of this. They say it's hard, and they say the transition is going to take a long time. That is an understatement. For them to say it's hard and then lay it off like some sort of original idea, some sort of idea that has been set out, it's not only hard, it's basically impossible. Right. Let me give you an example, a metaphor. For humans to go from horses to cars and for commercial cars to be everywhere required approximately 50 years, 60 since its inception, and that is easy. Back then, economy was much better, things was much cheaper, inflation wasn't as hard. You can even ask the experts on old history, and they all agree. They even say that abolishment of fossil fuel subsidies and the transition process would be very difficult. To change from fossil fuel where everything in life almost requires fossil fuel, and then to retract all of those subsidies and to move the entire budget to environmentally friendly alternative technologies, which I will explain to you here, also requires fossil fuel subsidies. Where do you think electricity comes from? If not for fossil fuel subsidies that reduce tax, reduce royalties, give cheap prices to companies to produce these environmentally friendly alternative technologies using fossil fuels, then they wouldn't even exist. The electricity that will be used for this environmentally friendly technology, they use fossil fuel subsidies. Retract all fossil fuel subsidies. I can name you so many things that use fossil fuel subsidies. Plastic. You're going to take plastic. Clothing. There's like every single building material. There's things like roads. There's things like, just every single thing I can name you almost always require either petrochemicals, fossil fuels, and to make them require fossil fuel subsidies. That's basically like throwing every single industry under the bus and then hoping that it would survive. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. They mentioned about how it opens up some opportunities, but they are blind. Yes, it opens up some opportunities for the incredibly rich. It opens up some opportunities for the incredibly strong and backed by the government, but for everybody else, it closes so many opportunities. You think of regular people, commoners like you, commoners like us. They made mentions of how driving cars to school requires fossil fuel. If they take away all of that, what do you think is going to happen? Because fossil fuel subsidies is not for the Pertalite to cost 10,000 only. Fossil fuel subsidies are the only thing making Pertalite a thing. If it weren't for that, then nothing would happen, nothing would move. In every single industry, for example, like transportation, that requires fossil fuel. For it to immediately be redirected to environmentally alternative technologies, it's asking for the impossible. It simply cannot happen. For things like manufacturing of things like plastics and all of those stuff I said previously, it's not gonna happen. And for the things that they claim are environmentally friendly, requires fossil fuels to be produced and requires fossil fuel to be relevant. They are literally taking every single thing away and then hoping just by giving small things that it can grow, and then it can improve the economy. This is a case of greed. They say that people who only vie for fossil fuels. They are greedy. They are hypocrites, but they don't think of what they are doing themselves. Who do you think gains the most advantage out of this? Them, the rich, and the rich only. For example, let's take a simple case. If you want to take away every single fossil fuel subsidies and turn it into electricity, how many people would be able to buy any form of transportation that can use electricity? It's in the low percentages, and that cannot happen. I mean, every single thing here is out of greed. The mechanism doesn't make sense. Like, warn people and companies for them to do what? Yes, you can warn them, but they can't do anything about it. Educating advantages, yes, that is ridiculous. We all know the advantages, but people need to also know the disadvantages. This is ridiculous. They say to help countries grow, to help countries improve. On what? Fossil fuels are basically their lifeline. You're basically like cutting out life support from a dying old man. That is not how this works. And they say, abolish laws and then put in new laws regarding environmentally friendly. Yes, that can work, but only for that. What about everything else that is left behind? That is bad. That is not how things should ever work. I mean, it is the simplest case of corporate greed there ever is. I mean, even when fossil fuel subsidies are still established and are not retracted in any way possible, they give it to electricities. People out there, even in developed countries that you say have it easier, all protest. And it's for a reason. These fossil fuel subsidies, you can't immediately retract every single budget and redirect it. I mean, it's simply not that easy. It's not how it ever works. Fossil fuel subsidies. I mean, the argument that we can make is that maybe you can pull in a bit and redirect it to environmentally friendly alternative technologies. But if you redirect it all, then it's never going to happen. It's never going to ever work. I would even be surprised if a country like us, like Indonesia, still remains after 10 years if these types of policies start being applied. I mean, anybody that is not heavily backed by the country that does this is in extreme state of deficit and can basically just give up. It basically kills everything that are not with the rich, and it will eventually stagnate Indonesia to basically not being a country. This is ridiculous. Fossil fuel subsidies. If you want to abolish some, maybe you can. But to abolish like a tiny percentage, yes, you can. But to abolish every single part of it and to subsidy the entire thing is ridiculous. We stand against this motion vehemently. Thank you.